Welcome back to A Twist of Faith. As always, I'm your host, Alex Parkview. We are still looking at the Satanic Bible, the Book of Lucifer, the Enlightenment. This is one of the longest sections of the Satanic Bible, so it's still going to span probably at least 3 more episodes. I don't know exactly because you know me and my tangents. But we are looking at Not All Vampires Suck Blood. And this is one of my favorite books in the Satanic Bible just for the message. Like, religion aside, and my religious podcast here, religion aside, I love the message. And Not All Vampires Suck Blood. It's talking about those fucking life-draining energy vampires. We've all dealt with some, and this addresses ways to deal with them, recognize them, etc. So please, if you don't really pay much attention to stuff, at least listen to this one. I feel like everybody knows what this book is talking about. And I'm going to get started on it right after this. Not all vampires suck blood. Satanism represents responsibility to the responsible instead of concern for psychic vampires. Many people who walk the earth practice the fine art of making others feel responsible and even indebted to them without cause. Satanism observes these leeches in their true light. Psychic vampires are individuals who drain others of their vital energy. This type of person can be found in all avenues of society. They fill no useful purpose in our lives and are neither love objects nor true friends. Yet we feel responsible to the psychic vampire without knowing why. If you think you may be the victim of such a person, there are a few simple rules which will help you form a decision. Is there a person you often call or visit even though you really don't want to, because you know you will feel guilty if you don't? Or do you find yourself constantly doing favors for one who doesn't come forward and ask, but hints? Often the psychic vampire will use reverse psychology, saying, "Oh, I couldn't ask you to do that," and you, in turn, insist upon doing it. The psychic vampire never demands anything of you. That would be far too presumptuous. They simply let their wishes be known in subtle ways, which will prevent them from being considered pests. They wouldn't think of imposing, and are always content to willingly accept their lot without the slightest complaint, outwardly. Their sins are not of commission, but of omission. It's what they don't say, not what they do say, that makes you feel you must account to them. They are much too crafty to make overt demands upon you, because they know you would resent it and would have a tangible and legitimate reason for denying them. A large percentage of these people have special attributes, which make their dependence upon you more feasible and much more effective. Many psychic vampires are invalids, or pretend to be, or are mentally or emotionally disturbed. Others might feign ignorance or incompetence, so you will, out of pity or more often exasperation, do things for them. The traditional way to banish a demon or elemental is to recognize it for what it is and exorcise it. Recognition of these modern-day demons and their methods is the only antidote for their devastating hold over you. Most people accept these passively vicious individuals at face value only because their insidious maneuvers have never been pointed out to them. They merely accept these poor souls as being less fortunate than themselves and feel they must help however they can. It is this misdirected sense of responsibility or unfounded sense of guilt which nourishes well the altruisms upon which these parasites feast. The psychic vampire is allowed to exist because he or she cleverly chooses conscientious, responsible people for their victims, people with great dedication to their moral obligations. In some cases, we are vampirized by groups of people as well as individuals. Every fundraising organization, be it a charitable foundation, community council, religious or fraternal association, etc., carefully selects a person who is adept at making others feel guilty for its chairman or coordinator. It is the job of this chairman to intimidate us into opening first our hearts and then our wallets to the recipient of their goodwill, never mentioning that, in many cases, their time is not unselfishly donated, but that they are drawing a fat salary for their noble deeds. They are masters at playing upon the sympathy and consideration of responsible people. How often we see little children who have been sent forth by these self-righteous Fagins to painlessly extract donations from the kindly. Who can resist the innocent charms of a child? There are, of course, people who are not happy unless they are giving, but many of us do not fit into this category. Unfortunately, we are often put upon to do things we do not genuinely feel should be required of us. A conscientious person who finds it very difficult to decide between voluntary and imposed charity. He wants to do what is right and just, and finds it perplexing trying to decide exactly who he should help and what degree of aid should rightfully be expected of him. Each person must decide for himself what his obligations are to his respective friends, family, and community. Before donating his time and money to those outside his immediate family and close circle of friends, he must decide what he can afford without depriving those closest to him. When taking these things into consideration, he must be certain to include himself among those who mean most to him. He must carefully evaluate the validity of the request and the personality or motives of the person asking it of him. It is extremely difficult for a person to learn to say no when all of his life he has said yes. But unless he wants to be constantly taken advantage of, he must learn to say no when circumstances justify doing so. If you allow them, psychic vampires will gradually infiltrate your everyday life until you have no privacy left, and your constant feeling of concern for them will deplete you of all ambition. A psychic vampire will always select a person who is relatively content and satisfied with their life, a person who is happily married, pleased with their job, and generally well adjusted to the world around him to feed upon. The very fact that the psychic vampire chooses to victimize a happy person shows that he is lacking all things his victim has. He will do everything he can to stir up trouble and disharmony between his victim and those people he holds dear. Therefore, be wary of anyone who seems to have no real friends and no apparent interest in life except you. He will usually tell you he is very selective in his choice of friends, or doesn't make friends easily because of the high standards he sets for his companions. To acquire and keep friends, one must be willing to give of himself, something of which the psychic vampire is incapable. But he will hasten to add that you fulfill every requirement and are truly an outstanding exception among men. You are one of the very few worthy of his friendship. Lest you confuse desperate love, which is a very selfish thing, with psychic vampirism, the vast difference between the two must be clarified. The only way to determine if you are being vampirized is to weigh what you give the person compared to what they give you in return. You may at times become annoyed by the obligations put upon you by a loved one, a close friend, or even an employer. But before you label them psychic vampires, you must ask yourself, what am I getting in return? If your spouse or lover insists that you call them frequently, but you also require them to account to you for their time spent away from you, you must realize this is a give and take situation. Or if a friend is in the habit of calling upon you for help at inopportune moments, but you similarly depend upon them to give your immediate needs priority, you must regard it as a fair exchange. If your employer asks you to do a little more than is normally expected of you in your particular position, but will overlook occasional tardiness or will give you time off when you need it, you certainly have no cause for complaint and need not feel he is taking advantage of you. You are, however, being vampirized if you are incessantly called upon or expected to do favors for someone who, when you need a favor, always happens to have other pressing obligations. Many psychic vampires will give you material things for the express purpose of making you feel you owe them something in return, thereby binding you to them. The difference between your giving and theirs is that you return payment must come in non-material form. They want you to feel obligated to them and would be very disappointed and even resentful if you attempted to repay them with material objects. In essence, you have sold your soul to them, and they'll constantly remind you of your duty to them by not reminding you. Being purely satanic, the only way to deal with a psychic vampire is to play dumb and act as though they are genuinely altruistic and really expect nothing in return. Teach them a lesson by graciously taking what they give you, thanking them loudly enough for all to hear, and walking away. In this way, you come out the victor. What can they say? And when you are inevitably expected to repay their generosity, this is the hard part, you say no, but again, graciously. When they feel you falling from their clutches, two things will happen. First, they will act crushed, hoping your old feeling of duty and sympathy will return. And when and if it doesn't, they will show their true colors and will become angry and vindictive. Once you have moved them to this point, you can play the role of the injured party. After all, you've done nothing wrong, you just happen to have had pressing obligations when they needed you. And since nothing was expected in return for their gifts, there should be no hard feelings. Generally, the psychic vampire will realize his methods have been discovered and will not press the issue. He will not continue to waste his time with you, but will move on to his next unsuspecting victim. There are times, however, when the psychic vampire will not release his hold so easily and will do everything possible to torment you. They have plenty of time for this because when once rejected, they will neglect all else, what little else they have, that is, to devote their every waking moment to planning the revenge to which they feel they are entitled. For this reason, it is best to avoid a relationship with this kind of person in the first place. Their adulation and dependence upon you may at first be very flattering, and their material gifts very attractive, but you will eventually find yourself paying for them many times over. Don't waste your time with people who will ultimately destroy you, but concentrate instead on those who will appreciate your responsibility to them, and likewise feel responsible to you. And if you are a psychic vampire, take heed. Beware of the Satanist. He is ready and willing to gleefully drive the proverbial stake through your heart. Now, it's not too often that I just outright agree with or praise LaVey as far as his ideas, his choices of word, his methodologies, but I have to say I was legitimately impressed when I read this book of the Satanic Bible. Like, he addresses something that is very real. People who feed on other people and never plan on doing anything for them except keeping them in some form of bondage or under their power, so to speak. Now, he talks about the Satanist and how they are going to drive the proverbial stake. I'm going to give you a little bit more of a real life way of looking at it. The only way to survive the psychic vampires, the energy vampires, is honestly to live the way that I myself live. Be an asshole with a heart of gold. How somebody treats you, interacts with you, determines which part of you they get, the asshole or the heart of gold. Like, in my life, if I love someone, there are a few, they know who they are. I make it very clear to people that I love just that I love them, because life is short and we're never promised that tomorrow. But if you love somebody, as the ones I love, you love them for a reason. And you're willing to help them if they need it. But there's that mutual, they'll be there for you, they'll listen to you, they'll help you. It's that give and take that LaVey alludes to. As an asshole with a heart of gold, it is not my responsibility to live up to the version of me that you have created in your head. Say that again. It's not my responsibility to live up to whatever fantasy version of me you have created and let live in your head. I am me. I interact with who I interact with, how I choose to interact with them on my terms. And if it's somebody that has come into my circle, the select few that I actually love, then chances are they feel the same way about me. I don't understand. I get the guilt. I get all that because we're raised in a society and a culture of guilt. I understand that. I don't understand how people can just let themselves be used and walked all over just because somebody gives them a word of affirmation. Like, we'll go with one of the great societal examples. The guy who has a lot of money but no luck with the ladies, right? There's a classic. You've all known somebody like that. Well, a girl fucking hugs this guy and then creates in his head the illusion that they are a thing in hopes of getting him to do for her emotionally, physically, financially, however the case may be. She's not actually giving anything other than an illusion to this guy. So she's vampirizing him in her constant assault on his, well, altruistic intentions. The people that just take and, oh, well, I'd hate to ask, but I know you helped me once, so I figured I could ask you again. And they don't ever have anything to say to you except for when they need that help. I'm not saying anybody who ever asked you for anything is a vampire, a psychic vampire, an energy vampire. I'm saying the people that just only find time for you when it suits them. Those people are the people you need to just tell to fuck off. The people that would no sooner look at you, but then they're like, well, Facebook, social media, God, well, he liked this fucking picture of me where I was bent over one time, so let me see if I can just hit him up for something and he can look at more pictures like me and think that I'm more to him than what. No. Fucking be the asshole. Be the one who stands up for yourself, for your time. Like, I personally, asshole with a heart of gold, I wear that moniker proudly. I help so many people, and I don't say that to brag or boast. I say it as a statement of fact for this. I help so many people, but none of you know the number of people I help, how I help them, or what they do for me in the give and take that is our relationship. So just because I help people does not mean that I feel obligated to help everybody, because I'm just one fucking person. It's not my job to take care of the world. Like, I feel horrible for some of you that I see on social. I'm not going to help you because it's not my job to. You have to look out for yourself. I mean, there's that old saying, I hate the fucking saying, but it's a valid saying. I just hate it because it's so campy and fucking whatever, but you can't pour from an empty cup. You got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of number one. You got to take care of the asshole. You can have the heart of gold, but don't let the heart of gold turn you into a broke dick asshole. Like, it all counterintuitively flows together. So, like, if you're not sure if you should help somebody, don't. I mean, just that's my advice, straight up. Don't. And if they're like, well, but if all they're going to do is try and make you feel bad because you don't feel that you can help them, chances are they weren't that good of a person anyways, and they were just trying to use you as means to an end. I was raised, like, we'll use money, the classic, like, I need help with money thing, right? I was raised to never lend anybody anything unless you are capable of surviving, living comfortably without it. If they want to pay you back, of course, by all means. I'm not saying give away your money and fucking, damn, it's gone, like, give up all hope. Not everybody's just going to take your money and run. I'm just saying, if you give money, give it under that expectation, at least to yourself, that you're not going to see it again. Because if you can live without it and it benefits your friend, beautiful. If your friend is able and willing to pay you back even little bits at a time, they're trying, they're making an effort. They're not sucking the life, money, energy, substance out of you. They just hit a hard spot and they need a little pick-me-up. Like, if you don't give what you can't afford to be without, then you will never feel bad about helping out when you could. And that's not to say it's your job or responsibility to help out every time somebody asks. And that's part of what's wrong in our culture with all this, class wars, privilege. No, like, regardless of color, race, or gender, because those are the big three, like, societally, culturally driven things that we hear about from the political spectrum. Oh my God, I mentioned politics again. I really try to avoid that. But the politics of culture, race, and gender. Like, If you can fucking help somebody, cool. If you can't, cool. It doesn't mean that they're scum because they asked, be they man, woman, black, white, red, purple, rich, poor. And it doesn't mean that you're scum for helping them, not helping them of the same reasons. Black, white, rich, fucking red, white, purple, poor. You know what the fuck I'm saying. I can't even keep up with it because it's so ridiculous. Take away all the social constructs and look at the individual people. If an individual is able and willing to help another individual, that's a beautiful thing. If an individual is unable, willing, but not able, or even not willing to help another individual, then it's not your concern. It's between them and that person. And if they're close, they'll figure something out. If they're not, chances are it was a situation for one of these energy vampires, psychic vampires that LaVey mentions. Like, you should not feel as though you have to support other people. But I mean, personally, for me, when I do it, I just look at I've been in some shitty situations. Right now, I'm far from rich, but I'm okay financially. Like, I'm get by. So if I can help a friend get by, I'm going to. Is that friend going to pay me back? I don't know. I always tell them, if I give money, I'm like, hey, whatever, do you. They know that, like, there's limits to the, quote, generosity. I'm not going to give them thousands of dollars and be like, hey, it's on me, buddy. But if a friend needs a couple $100 to get by for the holidays or something, by all means. I don't really give a fuck about the holidays. Never have, never will. So the energy vampires out there, I feel like it's more just energy. Like, they're just all-consuming, soul-sucking vampires in this whole metaphoric speak of LaVey's. It's not just energy. They're after your whole fucking essence, your whole well-being, your whole everything. But there's also the genuine people who need help. If you can help them, cool. Individual to individual. Hey, I need a hand. Hey, here you go. Hey, cool. Or a friend that might be a little shy, like, I really don't want to ask, but I get it. I'm the same way. I don't like asking for help. What can I do? Because then it's an offer. It makes it a little easier for them. I'm not saying every time, but there's nuance to giving, receiving, helping, all that shit. There's a nuance to it. And while LaVey did an excellent job of calling out the assholes in the book, he left out the nuance and the little subtleties that exist amongst certain individual friends and friend groups. I mean, the biggest ones that I could think of would just be the ones that use promises of love, sex, relationship, or companionship as a what's the word? Collateral for your generosity. Like, if you have to put your generosity up as collateral for a perceived relationship, maybe reevaluate that. Don't do for others that are only out for themselves. And there's nothing wrong with helping people occasionally, but if you help them too often, my personal beliefs again here, like, you do you believe what you believe. But if you do nothing but help somebody every time they fuck up and do something stupid and end up in a situation where they're having to beg money, then all you're doing is enabling the same destructive behavior on their end. That makes you a shitty human just as much as them a shitty human for constantly putting themselves in that shitty situation. So, grain of salt again. LaVey nailed it really well, just left out a certain little nuance, subtlety. I guess just look at your interactions with people as individuals. Be that asshole. Have that heart of gold on standby for the ones that deserve it. But be that asshole. Look out for yourself and don't give what you can't afford to be without. And then you don't have to worry about sucking at life or feeling fucking just used and abused and tossed aside. I guess it ties in again with my ongoing message of don't be a shitty human. It's really that simple. Say that pretty often, but it's true. Don't be a shitty human. Be an asshole. Be a discerning asshole with a heart of gold on standby. And you'd be amazed at how much easier life gets when it comes to dealing with other people and their wants, needs, and their vampiristic tendencies. So that's all I got for you on this. Like, LaVey did a really good job. This here has just been my thoughts regarding his topic. And I'll come back with a real short conclusion for you here, just contact info, etc. And we will pick up in the next episode, still in the same book of the Enlightenment, because it's one of the longest. Alright, so in this episode we took a look at energy vampires, psychic vampires, soul-sucking essence vampires, whatever you want to call them. We looked at LaVey's definitions, ideas, thoughts, according to the Satanic Bible, how to overcome the adversary, how to defeat them, how to get on with your life and move past them and their wants. I gave you a few of my personal thoughts regarding the topic. Again, grain of salt. Follow it, don't follow it. I'm not here to influence you and say you have to do everything I talk about. I'm just giving you that feedback, that individual approach. Because we all know I hate people, I love individuals, so I'm all about that individual back and forth. Contact information, if you want to message me regarding anything, you can comment on YouTube directly under any of the videos, leave comments. I will interact when I get notification that there have been comments made. You can email me, twistoffaithpodcast@gmail.com, all one word, with any hate mail, love mail, collab ideas, just general comments. Fair warning, I may read shit in future episodes, depending if I get bored or if I just want to. You can leave audio messages, I think, is a thing through Anchor. I'm sure there's other things depending what distribution you are listening from, like iTunes, iHeart, fucking any of the billions of things that I've been able to publish my podcast on. They all have their own ratings, commentary sections, whatever. I'm always interested in feedback. I prefer actual useful feedback, not just you suck. Like, if you think I suck, tell me why you think I suck. You might or might not change it. Probably not, because it's my show, so, fuck you. But it gives me an idea to what the audience thinks of my time and how I'm doing with these episodes. So leave all the comments. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, especially now that I'm trying to push out more episodes due to the length of the subject matter, because the Satanic Bible, like I said, we're still working on that one section that is just so long. It's literally like one of the main parts of the Satanic Bible, the Book of Lucifer, the Enlightenment. I've still got a good chunk of it to go, so subscribe, be it on YouTube, be it on whatever you listen on, Spotify, Anchor, iTunes, iHeart, Pandora, Stitcher. I'm probably forgetting half of them, but I don't even try to remember them all, honestly. But subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Share with your friends if you think it's something they'd be interested in, or if you just want to piss them off and play a mean little prank on them. Hey, you love this podcast. Oh, psych. Fuck you. I don't know. Just fucking subscribe, share, rate, review. Keep tuning in, because if you don't listen, you don't know what the fuck's going on. As always, this has been A Twist of Faith, and I'm your host, Alex Parkview.